Namaste and welcome to Daily News Simplified, the what, why and how of newspaper reading. Now we would be analyzing the Delhi edition of the Hindu newspaper of 24th of December 2018, and the news that would be covered today is given on the screen, and the timestamp for the same is given in the description and the comment section given below. And so now with this, let us start with the first article. Now we have taken this editorial from the editorial page on page 8. Now what this article talks about are various concerns with regards to the Surrogacy Regulation Bill which was recently approved by the Lok Sabha. Now with regards to your UPSC syllabus, you should see this article and the upcoming explanation from the perspective of GS paper 2 within the section Governance and Social Justice, and within the subsection Government Policies and Interventions for Development in Various Sectors and Issues Arising out of their Design and Implementation. So now let us first understand as to what is altruistic surrogacy. Now altruistic in itself means selfless concern for the welfare of others. While surrogacy is an arrangement, and in most cases it is a form of a legal arrangement, and this legal arrangement is between a couple or a single person with a particular woman. Now under this arrangement, the woman agrees to become pregnant, carry the pregnancy to due term and give birth to the child. However, after the child is born, the couple or the single person would become the parent of the child that is born. And this in itself is known as surrogacy. Now there's one difference that you need to understand, which is between traditional surrogacy and gestational surrogacy. Now under the newly introduced surrogacy bill, India will not have any form of traditional surrogacy, and what is being allowed under the new surrogacy bill is gestational surrogacy. Now let's say there is a couple and there's another woman who has been asked to become a surrogate. Now in traditional surrogacy, the sperm would be taken by the husband and the egg by the surrogate itself, and thereby the husband and the surrogate would become the biological parents of the born child. However, after the child is born, the child would be given to the husband and the wife or the couple in itself. However, in gestational surrogacy, the sperm and the egg are taken of the couple in itself, and they are implanted into the surrogate, and the newborn child is also then given back to the couple itself. And therefore in this case, it is the husband and the wife who are also the biological parents of that child. While in traditional surrogacy, the husband and the surrogate are the biological parents of the born child. And what is happening in India is that under the new surrogacy bill, it is gestational surrogacy which has been allowed and not traditional surrogacy. So now hopefully up till here you've understood what is meant by altruistic and what is meant by surrogacy in a separate manner. And apart from that, you also understand what is the difference between traditional surrogacy and gestational surrogacy. So now let us understand as to what the author means by altruistic surrogacy and how it is related to gestational surrogacy as envisioned under the surrogacy bill. Now according to the new surrogacy regulation bill which has been passed by the Lok Sabha, altruistic surrogacy arrangement would include contracting a close relative as a surrogate. And this close relative can be contracted by a heterosexual married couple who have been childless for 5 years of their marriage. Now question arises is how is contracting a close relative to be a surrogate a form of altruistic surrogacy arrangement? Now what used to happen earlier was of commercial surrogacy, whereby a single person or a couple would hire a woman and then pay this woman to carry a child. However, what was happening was that this woman who was acting as a surrogate was being exploited by the system, whereby in the past decade there were several cases of women being forced to become surrogates for others. And during the period when they were surrogates, they were also not provided with proper health care and financial resources to take care of themselves. And it was within that regard that commercial surrogacy was banned in India. And subsequently, a surrogacy regulation bill was introduced within the Parliament of India. And it is within this surrogacy regulation bill that a form of altruistic surrogacy is trying to be ensured. And therefore, according to the author, altruistic surrogacy is being ensured through the ties of kinship, whereby it is being assumed under the surrogacy regulation bill that if a close relative is being contracted to be a surrogate, then this close relative would not be exploited or be enticed with the promise of money. However, with regards to this, the author has raised various concerns as to whether this mechanism of having a close relative as a contracting party for surrogacy can ensure altruistic surrogacy. Now, the first concern that has been raised by the author is with regards to care of surrogates. Now, the author has given the example of the United Kingdom, which also has a procedure for ensuring surrogacy, whereby in the United Kingdom, the couple or the single parent which has hired a surrogate ensures that reasonable expenses are being paid to the surrogate, such as ensuring the healthcare of the surrogate, a proper diet for the surrogate, and other requirements to ensure that proper care is taken of the surrogate. However, what is happening under the Surrogacy Regulation Bill of India is that no such procedure of care is being ensured for surrogates, whereby what is being assumed is that because the surrogate is a close relative, then the couple would ensure that they also take care of the close relative. However, this is a strong assumption, which may not be true in all cases, that both the close relative and the couple would be altruistic in nature, whereby they would have selfless concern for the welfare of the other. The second concern raised by the author is with regards to the definition of near relative. Now, within this regard, the author has given the example of the Transplantation of Humans Organ Act of 1994, wherein under this act it was said that organ donors are allowed to donate their organs before death only to near relatives. However, what happened in India was that several people produced fake documents and used several illegal means to show a stranger as being their near relative. And since the word near relative was not properly defined under the Transplantation of Human Organ Act of 1994, it was misused by people. And because of this misuse, the government then had to define as to what would be a near relative, whereby mother, sister, father, among others, were then defined as being near relatives under the Organs Act. And it is within that aspect that the author has highlighted that the term close relative needs to be properly defined under the Surrogacy Regulation Bill, whereby if it is not properly defined, then any particular woman can be shown as being a close relative and thereby opens the gate for its misuse. And the last main concern which has been raised by the author is that kinship does not ensure altruism. Now, in simple terms, it means that just because a person is a close relative, it does not mean that they would be taken care of. And apart from that, being a close relative also does not ensure that no form of exchange of money is not being done. And it is within that context that the author is saying that kinship does not ensure altruism, whereby it does not mean that a close relative is becoming a surrogate just for the welfare of the couple. Now, these are the three main concerns which have been highlighted by the author with regards to the arrangement of altruistic surrogacy under the Surrogacy Regulation Bill. Now, you have to understand that this article talks about a very specific feature of altruistic surrogacy of the Surrogacy Regulation Bill. But hopefully, you have understood as to what is surrogacy, what is the difference between traditional and gestational surrogacy, and how the Surrogacy Bill has defined altruistic surrogacy, and what are the concerns with regard to it. Now, question for your practice for mains examination is what is the current scenario of surrogacy in India? Suggest measures to remove the hurdles in ensuring an altruistic form of surrogacy in India, wherein you would be able to answer this question with the help of the article and the explanation given in this section. And so now with this, let us move on to the next article. Now we have taken this article from the opinion-based editorial page on page 9. Now what this article provides is a small section from a particular book. And therefore there are two aspects that we're going to understand from this article. First, as to what this article talks about. And secondly, what is genetic drift? Whereby understanding as to what is genetic drift becomes important from the perspective of your upcoming prelims examination of 2019. Whereby you should see the focus of this article from the perspective of your GS paper 1 within the section Heritage and Culture, while you should understand as to what is genetic drift from the perspective of your prelims examination. Now what this article talks about is the first wave of Indian ancestors. Now it has been said that the human population that currently exists in the world first moved out of Africa, whereby as also mentioned in the article, the African population moved into the Arabian Peninsula, and from there onward the first wave of people entered into India, and this first wave of people are known as the first wave of the ancestors of the Indian people. And it has been considered that in the Andaman Nicobar Islands, the Onge tribal group are considered to have the closest resemblance to the first individuals who moved out of Africa into India. and therefore it has been considered that the Onge tribe, which live in the Andaman Nicobar Islands, are considered to be the closest resembling descendants of the original migrants or the first wave of Indian ancestors, and they were landed and continue to live in the Indian subcontinent. However, the author in the article has made an argument that the Onge tribe are different from the first wave of Indian ancestors. And apart from that, the author has also said that the current tribal populations who live in Africa, such as the Maasai tribal group, are also different from the first wave of people which went out of Africa. Now, what the author is trying to mean by this is that the first wave of Indian ancestors have been believed either to be closely related to the Onge tribe in the Andaman Nicobar Island or to the original tribal groups such as the Maasai tribal group which currently live in Africa. But however, the author is trying to make an argument that the Onge tribe and the tribal groups that currently live in Africa are different from the first wave of Indian ancestors, and both of them cannot be compared to get a picture on how the first wave of Indian ancestors looked like or how they behaved. And it is within that context that the author has given as to why he considered them to be different. When according to the author, the reason as to why the current population of the Onge tribe and of the tribal groups in Africa are different from the first wave of Indian ancestors is due to genetic mutation, genetic drift, and genetic selection. Now, genetic drift is the mechanism of evolution in which the changes in gene, especially within a small population, either leads to the preservation or the extinction of a particular gene. Now, what genetic drift does is that it leads to decrease in the genetic diversity over time, and thereby leading to a homogeneous small population. Now, genetic drift is one of the mechanisms that had happened to the Onge population within Andaman Nicobar Islands. Now, if you take an example of the Onge population which live in isolated islands within the Andaman Nicobar group, according to the author, in every generation there is a chance that the last person who's carrying a particular gene may actually die without passing on that gene. And what is generally seen in small population is that there are a lot of chances of marriage within the same family group. And what it does is that it leads to the preservation of a particular gene, which is then passed on from one generation of family to another, and thereby decreases the genetic diversity within that small population. Now, genetic mutation is the permanent alteration or change in the DNA sequence. And what the genetic mutation does is that it makes the DNA sequence of a particular person or a particular group of person different from what is found in the majority population. And this form of genetic mutation leads to genetic diversity within a species. Now, an example of this is that almost 15 to 10,000 years ago, humans were not capable of digesting dairy products or milk which was derived from animals, and therefore the majority of the human population was lactose intolerant. But what happened roughly around 15 to 10,000 years ago is that a small group of population which is considered to have lived in the Arabian Peninsula had a form of a genetic mutation and thereby became able to digest dairy products which was made from the milk of animals. And this was a form of genetic mutation which was then passed on to almost every human population that existed afterwards. And similar other forms of genetic mutations have existed within humans and other forms of animals. And thereby it leads to a form of genetic diversity within a species. Now, the third process that the author talks about is of genetic selection, whereby genetic selection is an evolutionary process by which certain traits or certain aspects of a gene become more prevalent in a species than other traits. Now, an example of this would be the Tibetan population, whereby the Tibetan population are much more suitable to live in colder parts of the world. And this is seen as a part of a genetic selection that happened within the Tibetan population, whereby the trait to withstand extreme cold became more prevalent in the Tibetan population. So now hopefully you have understood as to what is genetic mutation, genetic selection, and genetic drift. And these are the three main reasons given by the author as to why the current Onge population and the current tribal population in Africa are different from the first wave of Indian ancestors. Since according to the author, what has happened is that the Onge tribe and the various tribal groups that live in Africa have undergone different forms of genetic mutation, genetic selection, and genetic drift. And these genetic mutation, selection, and drift have continued to happen in the Onge tribal group and the tribal group in Africa over a period of 50 to 60,000 years. And according to the author, because of these changes that may have happened to both of these groups, then they should be different from the first wave of Indians. So now hopefully you've understood the focus of this article, whereby the author is trying to explain that the current tribal population in Africa and the current Ongate tribal group within the Andaman Nicobar Island are different from the first wave of Indians because of genetic mutation, drift and selection which have happened to both of these populations over a period of 50 to 60,000 years. And due to these genetic mutation, selection and drift, they are different from the original first wave of Indians which came out of Africa. And apart from that, you also understand as to what is genetic mutation, selection and drift from the perspective of your upcoming prelims examination. Now there are 2 questions for your practice, and what you need to do is pause this video, solve both of these questions and wait for 5 seconds for the correct answer. Now the correct answer to the first question is A, 1 only, whereby genetic drift is the tendency of small population to have a declining genetic diversity over time. However, with regards to statement number 2, it is not necessary for genetic mutation to only lend success to genes that are beneficial to a population group, whereby genetic mutation can also lead to genes which are not beneficial to a population group, wherein genetic diseases are a form of genetic mutation which are not beneficial to a population group. And so therefore, it is only statement number 1 which is correct. Now with regards to the second question, the correct answer is C, both 1 and 2, wherein the Ongate tribe is mainly found in India and the Maasai tribe is found in Kenya. And so now with this, let us move on to the next article. Now we have taken this article from page 7. Now this article has given various observations from a recently published report by the Indian Council for Research on International Economic Relations. Now the first main observation that has been made from this report is that although there has been an increase in the literacy level among women, it has not led to an increase in the participation of women in the workforce. Now to support this argument, the article has given various figures from the report, whereby in the year 2013-14, the number of graduate women who were not working was around 62%. And similarly, the number of illiterate women who were not working was around 67%. However, what has happened in the year 2015-16 is that the number of graduate women who are not working has increased to 65%, while the number of illiterate women who are not working has also increased to 70%. And therefore, it is based on these figures that the article has said that there has been an increase in the literacy level among women in India, but it has not led to an increase in women participation in workforce, whereby as compared from 2013-14 till 2015-16, there has been an increase of women not working. There has been an increase of women not working within the workforce. Apart from this, the second main observation that has been given in the article is that even though there has been parity among men and women in terms of education level, it has not led to parity between men and women in workforce participation. Now to support this argument, the article has given the various figures that the gross enrollment ratio, such as in higher education, apart from gross enrollment ratio within the school level, is almost similar between male and female. And therefore what the article is trying to say, that even though India is almost achieving gender parity in education level between men and women, it has not led to parity in the workforce participation. And based on this, the author has given several reasons as to why even though there has been an increase in the literacy level among women, it has not led to an increase in women participation in workforce. Now the first reason given in the article is that educational attainment for women has generally been seen to increase the marriage prospects for that woman, and therefore women are not being educated so as to increase their participation in the workforce, but rather they are being educated so as to increase their prospects for marriage. Now the second reason given in the article is that the formal sector, which creates less exploitative jobs, has not created enough jobs in India to cater to the demands of the women. The third reason given in the article is that gender pay gaps and the lack of social incentives de-emphasize the participation of women in the workforce, whereby what is happening is that males are being provided more pay as compared to females, and apart from that, there is a lack of social incentives for women, whereby safe transport, protection from sexual harassment at the workplace, and other forms of social incentives are not being provided to increase the participation of women in the workforce. And therefore, both of these reasons are causing more women in choosing not to work. And the last reason given in the article is that women are forced to leave the workforce after motherhood. Now, these are the four main reasons as given in the article as to why, even though there has been an increase in the literacy level among women, it has not led to an increase in the women participation in the workforce. Now, you should see this article and this explanation first from the perspective of GS Paper 1 within the subsection Role of Women. And apart from that, you should also see this from the perspective of your GS Paper 2 within the section Social Justice. And within the subsection Issues relating to development and management of social sector services relating to education and human resources. And so now with this, let us move on to the next article. Now, we have already discussed some of the articles in depth which were taken in daily news headlines. And what we'll do now is understand some of the remaining articles from daily news headlines from the perspective of your prelims and your mains examination. And now the first news that we would be analyzing in brief is with regards to the volcanic eruption of Anak Krakatoa in Indonesia, which has led to tsunami within Indonesia. Now, the first thing that you need to understand from this article is the location of Anak Krakatoa volcano. Now, this volcano is located in the Sunda Strait between the islands of Java and Sumatra, whereby both of these islands are located in the country of Indonesia. Now, you have to also understand that Anak Krakatoa volcano is also known as the child of Krakatoa. And this is because a volcanic eruption in Krakatoa in 1927 led to the formation of the island known as Anak Krakatoa. And it is within this volcano within the island of Anak Krakatoa which has recently erupted. Now, these are the two main facts that you need to remember from this article. First is the location of Anak Krakatoa volcano, whereby it is located in the Sunda Strait, which divides the islands of Sumatra and Java of Indonesia. And the second fact that you need to remember is that the Anak Krakatoa island is also known as the child of Krakatoa, whereby a volcanic eruption in 1927 in Krakatoa led to the formation of a new island, which is now called Anak Krakatoa. And this new island also contains a volcano which has now recently erupted. Now, apart from this, there's one more aspect that you could try to understand from this article is how tsunamis work, whereby what I'll do is provide you a link to an animated video which has comprehensively described on how tsunamis are formed, and the link to this video would be given in the description section given below. And so now with this, let us move on further. Now, the second news that has been taken in the daily news headlines is that India is set to limit the number of pilgrims to Kartarpur. Now, you have to understand that the blueprint with regards to the Kartarpur Corridor is still under discussion between India and Pakistan. And therefore, you have to understand that this news is currently in transition, where you will have to wait and see at the final agreement that is agreed upon by India and Pakistan. Now, this Kartarpur Corridor is being established from the Dera Baba Nanak village in Gurdaspur in India to the Gurdwara Darbar Singh Kartarpur in Pakistan. Now, this corridor is going to be a pilgrimage corridor between India and Pakistan. And pilgrimages between India and Pakistan are governed by the 1944 Protocol on visits to religious shrines. And therefore, visits by Indian pilgrims to the Kartarpur Sahib is also governed by the 1974 Protocol on visit to religious shrines. Now, the important information that you need to remember, especially with regards to your upcoming prelims examination of 2019, are various facts with regards to the Kartarpur Gurdwara. Now, Sri Guru Nanak Ji lived in Kartarpur and had also established his home there. However, the home of Sri Guru Nanak Ji was later on washed away by the floods in the river Ravi. And the present Gurudwara, which is established in Kartarpur, was established by Maharaja Ranjit Singh. Apart from this, Kartarpur is also the location whereby this Gurudwara, which was established by Maharaja Ranjit Singh, was established on the place where Sri Guru Nanak Ji ascended to heaven. Apart from this, one important fact about the Kartarpur Gurudwara is that Guru Nanak Ji started the tradition of Guru Ka Langar in Kartarpur itself. Now, these are the 7 main facts that you need to remember about the Kartarpur Corridor and about the Kartarpur Gurudwara. And the facts with regards to the Kartarpur Gurudwara are very important, especially with regards to your upcoming prelims examination. And so now with this, let us move onward. Now, from page 7, we have already discussed in depth the news with regards to the no rise in working women despite high literacy levels. And so therefore, moving onward, the next news from page 7, which has been taken in daily news headlines, is that Prime Minister is going to open a Buddhist site museum at Lalitgiri in Odisha. Now, taking a cue from this article, what we're going to understand are various important places which are associated with Lord Buddha. Now, you need to understand the name of these important places and the reason for their association with Lord Buddha with regards to your upcoming prelims examination of 2019. Wherein the first place that you need to know is that Lumbini in Nepal is considered as the birthplace of Lord Buddha. The second place that you need to know is Kapila Vastu. Now there is a controversy as to whether Kapila Vastu, as mentioned in the Buddhist text, lies in Nepal or in India. However, it has been considered that Kapila Vastu is the place where Lord Buddha spent most of his childhood, and it was in Kapila Vastu that Lord Buddha renounced his worldly life. Now the third place that you need to know is that Bodh Gaya, which is in Bihar, is where Lord Buddha attained enlightenment. The fourth place that you need to know is that Sarnath, which is near Varanasi in UP, is where Lord Buddha preached his first sermon. The fifth place that you need to know is Shravasti in Uttar Pradesh, and this is the place where Lord Buddha spent most of his life. The sixth place that you need to know is Rajgir in Bihar, and it is in this place that Lord Buddha met Bimbasara and his son Ajatashatru, who belong to the Haryanaka dynasty and are considered to be one of the earliest kings of the Magad Empire. Now Rajgir is also the location of the Vulture Peak, and it is at Vulture Peak that Lord Buddha gave many of his important sermons. Apart from this, the Buddhist caves of Saptapani are located near Rajgir in Bihar, and it is in these Buddhist caves of Saptapani that the first Buddhist council was held under the leadership of Ajatashatru. The seventh place that you need to know is of Vishali in Bihar, whereby Lord Buddha preached his last sermon. Apart from this, when Lord Buddha renounced worldly life in Kapila Vastu, he began his spiritual training in Vishali in Bihar. And apart from this, he also established the Bhikshuni Sangh and initiated the first woman disciple Gautami in Vishali in Bihar. And the last important place which is associated with Lord Buddha is Kushinagar in UP, whereby Lord Buddha attained Mahaparinirvan in Kushinagar in UP. Now it means that Lord Buddha died in Kushinagar in Uttar Pradesh. Now these are the important places that are associated with Lord Buddha that are required for you to remember, especially with regards to your upcoming prelims examination of 2019. And this is because each year, 1 or 2 questions either on Buddhism or Jainism is asked in the prelims examination. And within that context, important places associated with Lord Buddha also becomes important. And so therefore moving onward. Now from the main editorial page on page 8, we have not taken the lead editorial in daily news headlines, because this article in itself is important for those who are preparing for the optional subject Political Science and International Relations and Philosophy. Now what has happened is that there was a Gandhi statue in the University of Accra, which is located in the country of Ghana. And what had happened is that the statue of Mahatma Gandhi, which was located in the University of Accra, was taken down based on the protest by the faculty and several students. Now there were 2 main reasons given by the faculties and the students who were protesting against the Mahatma Gandhi statue. Now the first main reason given by the protesting faculties and the student was that Mahatma Gandhi was a racist and he looked down upon the African people. Now with regards to the first point, the author has said that when Mahatma Gandhiji went to South Africa during his early 20s, he had written several articles and had showcased on various stages that he looked down upon the African people. However, by the late 20s, after Mahatma Gandhi has started the Satyagraha movement in South Africa, Mahatma Gandhiji also evolved his view and also began to see the African people as being exploited and equal to the white and the Indian people. And therefore what the author is trying to say is that Mahatma Gandhiji's view on African people evolved over time. And it is within that context that the author has also given the example of Hegel, who was a German philosopher, whereby during his early writings, Hegel was very impressed by India. However, during the later stages of his life, he also looked down upon India and became a supporter of colonialism within India. And it is within that context that the author is trying to say is that various philosophers such as Mahatma Gandhi or Hegel had evolved their views over time. And Mahatma Gandhiji's views during his early 20s with regards to the African people cannot be used to label him as being a racist. The second reason given by the various faculties and the protesting students for removing the statue of Mahatma Gandhi is that Ghana should promote native Africans and not foreigners such as Mahatma Gandhi. And it is within that context that the author has also given an example of statues of Lenin being removed in the state of Tripura. And the author is trying to make a point is that by removing the statues of foreign leaders, it does no good in promoting native leaders. Now, this was the main crux of this article, wherein the author has highlighted the two reasons given by the protesting students and faculty in Ghana for removing the statue of Mahatma Gandhi. And it is within that context that the author has given various reasons as to why both of these points are problematic. However, you have to understand that this article in itself should largely be seen by those students who are preparing for political science and those students who are preparing for philosophy as optional subjects. Now, since this article is not required for your GS preparation, the PDF for this article therefore would not be provided. But hopefully you've understood the basic crux of this article, and so thereby moving onward. Now, we have already discussed in depth the article with regards to altruistic surrogacy. Now, the next editorial, which has also been taken in daily news headlines, is with regards to banks recapitalization. Now, this recapitalization plan for public sector banks has already been covered comprehensively by Basava sir in a recent daily news simplified video of 21st of December. And what you can do is watch this video to get a comprehensive understanding about the recapitalization plan. And so thereby moving onward. Now, from the opinion editorial page on page 9, we have already discussed in depth the article with regards to the first Indians. Now, the next editorial, which has been taken in daily news headlines, is with regards to the water crisis in India. Now, according to a recent report by the Niti Aayog, around 600 million people in India face water shortage. About 2 lakh people die each year because they do not have access to clean water. And by 2020, 21 cities within India will run out of groundwater. And all of this would cause about 6% loss in GDP to India. Apart from this, what this article has also highlighted is that snow melt account for nearly 3/4 of the water in the Brahmaputra and the Indus River basin. And apart from this, snow melt also accounts for almost half of the water in the Ganga River basin, which is also the country's largest river basin. However, what is happening is that because of global warming, is the smaller amount of snow is being formed. And with time, this would decrease the amount of water which is available in the basin of Brahmaputra, Indus and Ganga. Now, these are the 5 main points which have been given in the article with regards to the increasing problem of water crisis in India. Now, apart from these 5 points, most of the points which have been given in the article are political in nature. And therefore, what is required for you to remember from this article are these 5 points with regards to water crisis in India. And you need to remember these points from the perspective of your GS paper 3 within the section environment. And so with this, let us move onward. Now, from page 13, the last article that we would be analyzing for today is with regards to the dredging market. Now, the Niti Aayog has said that India needs to open up its dredging market so as to boost trade, whereby what is happening is that major ports in India cannot handle very large vessels. And what is currently happening is that the Dredging Corporation of India and a limited number of private vendors currently provide the dredging needs for India. However, they have not been able to handle the demand with regards to dredging in India. And it is within that context that Niti Aayog has said that India needs to open up its dredging market to international players. Now, with regards to this, you need to understand that this news is currently in transition. But we will have to wait and see as to whether the government of India opens up the dredging market to international players. However, what is required for you to understand from this article is what is dredging. Now, dredging basically means the evacuation of sediments and then disposing them at a different location. Now, if you take a look at this image, this ship would have probably picked up this sediment from a different location and is now depositing this sediment at this different location. Now, these sediments are either dug or gathered from the bottom of rivers, lakes, harbor, or the open sea. Now, the main reason as to why dredging is required is to maintain the depth of the ports. And apart from this, it is also required to create new shipping channels. Now, large vessels require a certain amount of water depth so as to pass through that region. So now, let's say by dredging, a particular layer of sediment has been removed. It then allows a larger ship to run through that area without hitting the ground. And it is within that context that the Niti Aayog has said that the major ports in India cannot handle very large vessels. And that is why international dredging players are required so as to remove the sediments from the major ports and thereby increase the depth of the major ports and thereby allow the larger vessels to enter the Indian ports. So now hopefully you've understood this article and you've also understood as to what is dredging. And so now with this, we have covered most of the articles that have appeared in the daily news headlines. Now based on the discussions in news in brief, there are 3 questions for your practice. And as you already understand, what you need to do is pause this video, solve these 3 questions, and wait for 5 seconds for the correct answer. Now the correct answer to the first question is D, 1, 2 and 3, wherein you already understand as to why statement 1 and 2 are correct. However, with regards to statement number 3, you have to understand about environmental dredging, wherein what generally happens is that the top sediment layer in any water body such as lakes, river and others generally have a large number of pollutants being deposited. However, by environmental dredging, what happens is that these pollutants are removed, and therefore environmental dredging reduces the exposure of aquatic life to pollutants. Now with regards to the second question, the correct answer is B, 2 only. Now statement number 1 is wrong because there are 5 Akal Takhts within the Sikh religion, which are located in Amritsar, Patna, Chandigarh, Bhatinda and Nanded. And currently Kartarpur Sahib Gurudwara is not one of the Akal Takhts within the Sikh religion. Now the question that was asked in the prelims examination of 2014 was which of the following kingdoms were associated with the life of the Gautama Buddha, wherein the correct answer to this question would be C, 3 and 4. And it is based on the similar question, is which of the following places are associated with the life of Gautama Buddha, wherein the correct answer to this question would be B, 2 and 3, wherein the Gandhara kingdom is an important Buddhist site, however it is not associated with the life of Gautama Buddha. So now hopefully you've understood the explanation with regards to the 3 questions for practice. And now with this, we come to an end in the analysis of today's newspaper. Now before moving onwards, I would like to wish all of you a Merry Christmas on behalf of the Rouse team. And now with this, let us move on to the question for today.